This message is issued by the Federal Emergency Coordination Center in conjunction with the Department of Defense. A Level 7 containment breach has occurred at the Hanford Nuclear Reservation. All civilians within a 200-mile radius are advised to remain indoors and avoid all underground structures. This is not a drill. At approximately 0347 hours this morning, seismic monitoring stations detected a 6.2 magnitude tremor originating from beneath Hanford's decommissioned reactor Complex B. What initially appeared to be standard tectonic activity has since been reclassified as a containment failure of Project Deep Burial, a classified defense initiative dating back to 1954. Dr. Emily Carter, senior geologist at the facility, reported structural damage to Containment Chamber 7 before all communication with the site was lost. The situation has escalated beyond our conventional response protocols. For those unaware, Project Deep Burial was established during the height of Cold War tensions as a biological deterrent program. Without compromising ongoing national security, we can confirm that the project involved the development and subsequent containment of what military documents refer to as Specimen Alpha, a genetically enhanced organism designed as a last resort defensive measure. The specimen was successfully contained beneath 300 feet of reinforced concrete and steel in 1968, following what archives describe as acceptable initial testing parameters. We had every reason to believe the containment would remain stable indefinitely. The tremor that occurred this morning appears to have been caused by the specimen's awakening after 56 years of dormancy. Preliminary analysis suggests the recent solar flare activity may have interfered with the electromagnetic containment field, though Dr. Sarah Kennedy's team is still investigating the exact trigger mechanism. What we know with certainty is that the creature designated as Specimen Alpha has breached primary containment and is exhibiting behaviors consistent with territorial expansion patterns documented in the original 1960s research files. At 0512 hours, ranch hand Dave Collins reported seeing what he described as a walking mountain with eyes, moving across his property near Pasco. Collins was feeding his cattle when he noticed them becoming increasingly agitated, clustering together and making distress calls he'd never heard before. When he looked toward the source of their alarm, Collins observed a bipedal figure approximately 300 feet in height moving with deliberate, measured steps across the landscape. The entity's skin appeared to be dark green with what Collins described as rocky plates running down its back like a dinosaur, but bigger than any building I've ever seen. When Collins attempted to photograph the specimen with his phone, the device malfunctioned, displaying only static interference. He estimates the entity was visible for approximately 4 minutes before disappearing behind a ridgeline toward the Columbia River. 23 minutes later, emergency dispatcher Rachel Thompson received what she initially classified as a prank call from trucker Steve Parker. Parker claimed to have witnessed the same entity crossing Interstate 82 approximately 15 miles southeast of Collins Ranch. According to Parker's testimony, the creature moved across the highway in 3 steps, each footprint leaving a crater roughly 40 feet in diameter and 8 feet deep. Parker's dash camera captured 17 seconds of footage before the device experienced what our technical team describes as anomalous electromagnetic interference. The recovered footage shows a massive silhouette against the dawn sky, with distinctive dorsal fins clearly visible along the creature's spine. Parker also reported that his radio began picking up what sounded like whale songs, but at frequencies that made his truck's cabin vibrate uncomfortably. The third confirmed sighting occurred at 0551 hours when Mary Sanders, a barista opening the Morning Grind coffee shop in Richland, witnessed the specimen approaching the Columbia River. Sanders described the entity as moving with surprising grace for its size, each step causing minor earthquakes that rattled windows throughout the downtown area. Most disturbing was Sanders' observation that the creature appeared to be following the river's course with what she called obvious intelligence and purpose. When the specimen reached the water, it partially submerged, creating a displacement wave that flooded several riverside properties. Sanders reported that the creature remained in the river for approximately 6 minutes, during which time it emitted a low-frequency call that triggered car alarms throughout the city and caused several individuals to experience nausea and disorientation. At 0619 hours, military personnel dispatched from Joint Base Lewis McChord established visual contact with Specimen Alpha near the Tri-Cities area. Commander Mike Chambers authorized a reconnaissance flyover using 2 F-15 Eagles equipped with high-resolution imaging equipment. The pilots reported that the creature was approximately 320 feet in height, bipedal, with massive muscular development and the aforementioned dorsal plates. Most concerning was their observation that the specimen demonstrated clear awareness of the aircraft, tracking their movement with what appeared to be intelligent assessment rather than mere animal curiosity. When the pilots attempted a second pass for additional reconnaissance, the creature emitted a focused beam of bioluminescent energy that caused both aircraft to experience complete electrical failure. Both pilots were forced to execute emergency landings, though thankfully without casualties. The decision was made to attempt conventional military intervention at 0734 hours. A strike team equipped with armor-piercing ordnance engaged Specimen Alpha near the Horseheaven Hills. Initial reports suggested successful target acquisition, with multiple direct hits confirmed. However, within minutes of the attack, it became clear that conventional weapons were entirely ineffective against the creature's hide. Worse, the aggressive action appeared to trigger a defensive response we had not anticipated. The specimen emitted what Dr. James Bennett's analysis team describes as a bio-acoustic weapon, a roar that registered at 174 decibels and caused immediate hearing damage to personnel within a 3-mile radius. The creature then demonstrated increased agitation and began moving more rapidly toward populated areas, suggesting that confrontational tactics may actually accelerate rather than contain the threat. Multiple attempts at electronic countermeasures have similarly failed. Dr. Mark Holloway's technical team deployed electromagnetic pulse devices designed to disrupt the creature's nervous system, based on theoretical models from the original deep burial research. The EMP had no observable effect on Specimen Alpha, but it did disable our own communication equipment and several civilian cell towers in a 15-mile radius. We're learning, unfortunately through trial and error, that this organism was specifically engineered to resist the types of weapons available during the Cold War era, and our current arsenal appears no more effective. Based on pattern analysis of the creature's movement and behavior, our research team has identified 4 distinct behavioral phases that civilians should be aware of. Phase 1 involves territorial surveying, during which the specimen moves in broad, sweeping patterns while emitting low-frequency calls every 12 to 15 minutes. These calls serve as both echolocation and territorial marking, and they cause mild to moderate discomfort in humans within a 5-mile radius. During this phase, the creature shows little direct interest in human activity, but will investigate large structures or vehicles that enter its perceived territory. Phase 2 begins when the specimen encounters resistance or feels threatened. The creature becomes more focused in its movements and begins targeting infrastructure that it perceives as potential threats, primarily communications towers, power plants, and military installations. The low-frequency calls increase to every 3 to 4 minutes and become significantly more intense, causing disorientation, nausea, and temporary hearing loss in exposed individuals. We've observed that civilians who attempt to flee during this phase often trigger the creature's pursuit instincts, leading to Phase 3 activation. Phase 3 represents active territorial defense. The specimen begins actively pursuing perceived threats, moving at speeds up to 35 miles per hour despite its massive size. The bio-acoustic weapon becomes the primary tool during this phase, with roars occurring every 60 to 90 seconds and causing structural damage to buildings within a 2-mile radius. Most concerning is our observation that the creature demonstrates problem-solving intelligence during this phase, using environmental features and even human infrastructure as tools to overcome obstacles or eliminate threats it cannot reach directly. Phase 4, which we've only observed twice in archived footage from the 1960s testing, involves what researchers term environmental integration. The specimen begins actively modifying its surroundings, creating nesting areas and establishing what appears to be a permanent territorial claim. During this phase, the creature becomes significantly more aggressive toward any intrusion, and begins exhibiting breeding-related behaviors that we frankly do not want to contemplate in our current situation. Current safety protocols are as follows. Do not attempt to observe or photograph specimen alpha. All electronic devices appear to malfunction within a quarter-mile of the creature, and the electromagnetic interference may actually attract its attention. If you hear the low-frequency calls, immediately move to the lowest floor of the most structurally sound building available, and remain there until the sounds cease completely. Do not attempt to flee in vehicles during active calling periods, as engine noise appears to draw the creature's focus. Most importantly, do not attempt to use weapons or aggressive deterrence of any kind. Every hostile action we've taken has resulted in increased aggression and more rapid movement toward populated areas. Emergency shelters have been established in Spokane, Portland, and Boise, though we advise remaining in your current location unless specifically instructed to evacuate by local authorities. Director Patty Mills has authorized the deployment of our specialized containment team, but their estimated arrival time is 18 hours, and frankly, we're not certain our containment protocols will be any more effective than our military response has been. The creature appears to be following the Columbia River system, which unfortunately leads directly through some of our most populated areas. What we're dealing with is not a natural disaster or terrorist attack that we can approach with conventional methods. Specimen Alpha represents 60-year-old biotechnology that was designed specifically to be unstoppable by the weapons and tactics of its era. The engineers who created this organism are long dead, and much of the research documentation was classified beyond our current access levels. We're essentially trying to contain a living weapon that was designed by our own government to be uncontainable. Dr. Sarah Kennedy's team has been working around the clock to analyze the creature's behavior patterns and identify potential containment options. Their preliminary recommendation is that we may need to allow Specimen Alpha to complete its territorial establishment phase and then attempt long-term coexistence protocols rather than continued containment efforts. This is obviously not the solution any of us hoped for, but it may be the only realistic option given the creature's apparent invulnerability to conventional intervention. Civilian reports continue to stream in from across Washington, Oregon, and now Northern California, suggesting that the specimen's territorial range is expanding rapidly. Jenny Matthews in Salem reported seeing the creature cross Interstate 5 at approximately 14:30 hours, moving south at what appeared to be a steady, purposeful pace. Brad Cooper's amateur radio group has been tracking the creature's bio-acoustic calls, and their data suggests it's following major river systems with remarkable precision, almost as if it's conducting some form of environmental survey. The most disturbing development occurred at 16:47 hours when Angie Foster, a park ranger at Mount Rainier, reported observing what appeared to be a second, smaller specimen emerging from Lake Chelan. Foster's description matches Specimen Alpha in basic configuration, but estimates the height at approximately 150 feet. If this observation is accurate, it suggests either that Specimen Alpha was not the only organism contained at Hanford, or that the creature possesses reproductive capabilities that were not documented in the original research files. Chief Lisa Grant has dispatched investigation teams to 17 other Cold War-era containment sites across the Pacific Northwest, but we won't have results from those surveys for at least 48 hours. International monitoring stations have confirmed that similar seismic events have been detected at former Soviet bio-research facilities in Siberia and Kazakhstan. While we cannot confirm the nature of these events, the timing suggests that whatever triggered Specimen Alpha's awakening may have been a global phenomenon rather than a localized containment failure. Supervisor Tom Walker has been in contact with international emergency coordination centers, but their responses have been limited. It appears we may be dealing with a worldwide situation that no government is fully prepared to acknowledge publicly. Current projections suggest that Specimen Alpha will reach the San Francisco Bay Area within 72 hours if it maintains its current course and speed. Evacuation of the Bay Area is logistically impossible in that time frame, so we're focusing on shelter-in-place protocols and hoping that our containment team can develop effective intervention strategies before the creature reaches major population centers. Rob Harris, our lead behavioral analyst, believes the creature may slow its advance once it reaches the ocean, as saltwater environments were noted as preferred habitat zones in the limited research documentation we've been able to declassify. The situation continues to evolve rapidly, and we acknowledge that our response has been largely reactive rather than proactive. We're dealing with a classified program that was designed specifically never to require public disclosure, so our emergency protocols are being developed in real time as we learn more about Specimen Alpha's capabilities and intentions. What we can tell you with certainty is that this creature poses no immediate threat to individuals who follow proper safety protocols, but it represents a significant challenge to our existing infrastructure and way of life. We will continue broadcasting updates every 2 hours on this frequency and all emergency alert systems. Monitor local emergency services for evacuation instructions specific to your area. Remember that this organism was created by human ingenuity during a different era, and human ingenuity will find a solution to coexist with what we have awakened. Until then, remain calm, follow safety protocols, and do not attempt heroic interventions that will only make the situation more dangerous for everyone involved. This concludes the current emergency broadcast. The next scheduled update will occur at 2100 hours. Stay safe, stay informed, and remember that sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is acknowledge when you're facing something bigger than yourself and adapt accordingly.